Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. Appreciate all your support. Can we talk about this aspect of the preseason? Now, I I thought, I try and be a little fair, and I gave the officials in the first preseason game a little, some props for the flagrant foul being called against Iriafen for the Sophie Cunningham nonsense. And then I think I misspoke and said it was a flagrant the second time as well, on Sykes, but I believe that was actually a technical. I don't know why it wasn't a flagrant. Uh, but apparently that was an anomaly. Not the anomaly. Caitlin Clark is the anomaly, but that looks like it might have been an anomaly because it doesn't seem like that's the type of stuff that's been going on as we go forward. As you can see here, WNBA controversy: Caitlin Clark collision raises officiating concerns ahead of 2025 season. As the Indiana Fever wrapped up a flawless preseason, far, far from flawless. And that's not a knock on the Fever. That's just lazy writing. Although more and more, I'm starting to think these are all AI generated articles. So that might be better than what we'd get otherwise. Anyway, a troubling moment involving Caitlin Clark reignited a familiar controversy. Late in the third quarter, the sophomore sensation drove hard to the basket, only to be met by Atlanta's Ryan Howard. Clark crashed to the court, curled up expecting a whistle, but none came. The no call immediately sparked an outcry from WNBA fans on social media who questioned the league's protection of its rising star. Clark, who missed the preseason opener, has been nursing an injury, has still shown flashes of brilliance in limited minutes. But Saturday's collision brought back concerns from last season when many fans felt Clark was subjected to overly physical play with minimal support from referees. As the 2025 WNBA season approaches, some fear that the lack of calls could not only affect Clark's performance, but also send the wrong message about player safety. And of course, the fans were divided on it. And I'll show you a clip of it here in a second. And I will just want to point out ahead of time, this to me, okay, is not about Ryan Howard at all, or it being a dirty play at all, or it being overly physical at all. It was clearly a foul. Ryan Howard, I think, knew it was a foul. She stayed there with Caitlin Clark. Um, by the way, after the game, standing next to her, she gave Clark, I believe, what were they called back in the day? A wet willy. Now, hopefully, it was a wet willy, and she stuck her finger in Clark's ear to annoy her. But anyways, right. So let's get that out of the way, that this is not a hate on Ryan Howard. This was a dirty play type of stuff. It's not that narrative. It's the narrative of why are the officials not protecting Caitlin Clark? And let me be clear, I do not mean that she should get fouls called in her favor when there is not a foul at all. Right? This is not about LeBron James and getting all these fouls for flops when he's not even touched by anything but air. Sorry, Michelle, if you're watching, but I gotta bring LeBron in here in a negative light as often as I possibly can. This is simply about understanding a couple of things. One, league wide and in general, when you're trying to grow the league, they have got to get away from this idea that this is, oh, it's a physical league and it's always been a physical league. And yes, basketball is a contact sport. Yes, there should be contact in basketball. And I'm not taking away from that. However, physical league should not be we're playing rugby on a basketball court and we're not going to call fouls according to the rule book, right? That's what a lot of people are upset about. That's what a lot of people don't get, and that is what takes away from the exciting part of the game. Look, soccer, and by the way, it is soccer. For those who want to smash on Americans, it was called soccer back in the day in England, and it got switched because anyway, I'm just saying it's soccer. Uh, but you had soccer go through that a lot too, where it was just there was so much physical play that it took away from the beauty and skill of the game. And they're like, no, this is ultimately it's a sport and it's competition and it should be fair, but it's also entertainment. And without fans, there is nothing. Hockey has gone through it back in the 90s. They had the whole neutral zone crap that clogged up the game and just made it almost unwatchable. Football, obviously, the NFL has practically made it flag football. I think they've gone too far the other way, but they obviously did that. They protect the quarterbacks. I think, again, too much, but that's a debate everyone can have. The point is, they were like, hey, you know what? The game's gotten kind of ugly. We need to focus on what makes it exciting and not calling obvious fouls, especially on the one player that brings in the fans is a really, really bad business decision. And the WNBA has got to put a foot down right now and say, look, you dumb, blah, 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 you better start calling the game the correct way. You got to call the game the correct way. When a player drives to the basket and gets smashed, you've got to call a foul. And it's not more complicated than that. And right, so here we got now new year. Caitlin Clark still getting assaulted with no foul calls. Okay, bro, y'all got it. One fan vented on X. Another added, it's frustrating with the WNBA. She never once went to the free throw line. Yeah, we'll get into that. And of course, other people defended it. But then again, if Caitlin Clark drove to the basket and someone literally threw an overhand right and knocked her out, they would say, well, that's not a foul. It's not a foul against Caitlin Clark. But yeah, so right. So we got this, and of course, this is where we get some comments. Shout out Fever Stats, Caitlin Clark in the 2025 preseason, 29 points in 2 games with 0 free throw attempts. And yes, she does drive. She does go to the basket. She also gets that whole people like to come down in her landing zone on her 3-point shots as well, and she never got that call last year either. Right, so she's on pace to average 29, 12, 12 on 53% FG and 50% 3PG, averaging a triple double with a historic 50, 50, 90 shooting percentage. Yeah, they're basing it on minutes from last year because obviously she did that in 2 games in limited minutes. She did that in about the total number of minutes she would play in 1 game, or at least last year, and 0 free throws attempted. Absolutely wild. That's why she got the T, pissed the reffing, so she threw a line drive into the backboard stand. Yeah, that's one thing I gotta say, just personal note. What I absolutely cannot stand about officials is when they get something so obviously wrong, and then they compound it by punishing someone who complains about their incompetence. It's like, look, I get again, to be clear to everyone, I've done it. I've officiated basketball. I officiated soccer. It's difficult. It's high speed. And the stuff that you have to go super slow-mo and then people still debate whether it's the call's correct or not. I have no problem with those calls getting wrong, right? The charge blocked. Very, very difficult call to make, but it doesn't excuse how many obvious calls that are gotten wrong. That's the problem that I have. And then you make that call and you got it wrong, and then you punish the player for complaining is absolutely wild. And so wait, I thought there were preferential whistles. Where are her 10 plus free throws, right? She's not Asia Wilson. And by the way, if you remember after a game, that was Angel Reese who decided to make that passive aggressive comment about, some people got a special whistle, which is absolutely wild. That special whistle, see, everyone remembers. Caitlin Clark fans keep receipts, is nowhere to be found. Is this because she's playing more off the ball or lack of calls? It's lack of calls. I just hope she doesn't get injured by all those fouls. She is already injured. And that goes to the other point. The WNBA, you do not want Caitlin Clark injured. You do not want Caitlin Clark lost for the season. Look, like what happened to Cameron Brink was terrible. I hate it. I hope her recovery is going great and she's back as soon as she can get back. And people didn't like it. But you know what? When Cameron Brink, this is harsh, but this is the reality of the growth of the game. When Cameron Brink tore her ACL, it didn't do anything to viewership. It didn't do anything to attendance. Imagine the ghost town that the WNBA will be if Caitlin Clark were to get hurt and be out for an extended period of time. You need to think about that. By the way, the players committing the fouls, Again, sorry, it sounds strange because you got to compete. I'm not saying don't compete, but maybe don't be dirty because if you lose Caitlin Clark, I tell you what, you will be big losers with the CBA because the league is going to really get an up close look at, damn, we're not doing so well when Caitlin Clark's not in the league, which, I posted this and a lot of people kind of in agreement. WNBA is an absolute poo show. The court was terrible. That court, I hated that court. Announcers were terrible. Officiating was terrible. WNBA should give everyone who got league pass a refund. Hell, that should be hell. That's a typo. They should be paying people to sign up. Yeah, so I know I went over a top a little bit to make a point. Shout out Black and White Sports 2 over there for actually using this. I'm in the thumbnail, so I feel like I've kind of made it. I'm kind of a celebrity in my own mind anyway, being in the thumbnail for Black and White Sports who talked about this. So shout out. And yeah, people are in agreement. Before the indie game started, I took the time to watch the last game played by the league. Only last games played by the league. Only one caught my attention, the Valkyries game. And so then we had this. This was, I'm gonna see if I'll go full screen to pop this up a little bit. This was the play. I wish I had a reverse angle because you could see a lot more on how this happened, but this is Ryan Howard come over. Clearly a physical contact, and Ryan like that again, not dirty, right? And she stayed there with her because she knows what happened, and Caitlin stayed balled up and nothing. And of course, it wasn't the only one, but zero free throws with the way Caitlin plays is absolutely wild. They're just not. They've got to make changes. And again, to be fair, I think they have to make changes in general, right? Not just about Caitlin Clark. I'm not saying that the rules should be different for her, but they need to start enforcing the rules and doing so consistently. You have to make the product better. And rugby is not it. Rugby is not it. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. As always, appreciate you checking out this video and all your support. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Oh, have the day you deserve, and I will talk to you later.